Hi, everyone. My name is Deshni Devan. I'm an occupational therapist. I specialize in treating people with persistent pain. And I've done so for most of my occupational therapist life. And this is my podcast, which is part of my initiative called Pain Coach, where I teach people about pain. That's clinicians, anyone who really wants to know about pain. And the podcast really is about helping people to understand that there is a way to move forward when you have persistent pain. So today we're interviewing Lauren McMaster. And Lauren is a previous client of mine. So I was part of the treating team that helped her during her phase of life where she was actually suffering from complex regional pain syndrome. But Lauren's going to tell you more about that. So welcome, Lauren. How are you today?
Thank you very much. I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
So to start off with, what we're going to do is talk a little bit about that sort of dark space that you were in, possibly when you came to me, or when you were really struggling with the persistent pain and with complex regional pain syndrome, how you felt, what was happening in your life, all of those things. If you could just give us, or give the people listening to the podcast, just an idea of where you were before things got better.
Sure. Yeah, so it was a pretty turbulent time in my life. I'd gone through a very traumatic experience. I was in one of the lowest places in my life at the time, and I tried to take my own life. And which resulted in me being in a coma. And I woke up, I had a left leg from the knee down that was completely numb, and I didn't know if I would ever walk again, and no professional could tell me if I would walk again. And I slowly started getting better. And I still remember the day I was going to see I don't know what you call someone who makes
Prosthetist. Yes, it's a hard word to say. Yes.
It is a hard word to say. I was going to say
yes. Well, we call them orthotists, I think, as well.
That's easier. Orthotists. To get a orthotic for my foot. And I remember going to the appointment, and I remember this unbearable pain that I was in, and I phoned my dad and I just said, Dad, I can't go to this appointment. There's something wrong with me, with my leg. I need something for pain. And I was readmitted to hospital. This was after making progress with physiotherapists, learning how to walk again. It was all kind of coming together. And then I started experiencing this unbearable pain, and I got readmitted to hospital. I literally couldn't have a sheet touching my foot without feeling like my leg was being cut off. And I felt so disheartened because I'd made all this progress and I'd taken literally like 100 steps back. And I was very disheartened, and obviously had no clue what was wrong with me or what was going on, what this pain was caused from. It kind of I went back to a bit of a difficult place, on top of not knowing if I would regain full recovery and feeling of my leg. I now had this extreme pain that I was in, and no one seemed to know where it was coming from or what was causing it. It definitely, I went into a bit of a dark place again. As I said, I was readmitted to hospital. They were checking what was going on. And then only did I start seeing specialists. It was a really difficult, those 3 months were really difficult times in my life. And the pain persisted for a long time before it got better. And I used to literally, the only thing that would ease the pain would be ice cold water. So I used to carry a bucket with me everywhere I went with ice cold water and have my legs submerged in this, because that's all that would ease the pain. And it never felt like it would end. So it was really discouraging. And yeah, I went through a very difficult time in my life where, yeah, I didn't know if I would walk again. I didn't know if I would be free from pain. Um, so yeah, it was hard, very hard. So I would say
Yeah.
that's the backdrop of the story.
Yeah. And it sounds like it was sort of a situation where you couldn't see a way out.
No,
You felt a little bit helpless because you
I felt
couldn't,
very
yeah, you couldn't really see how this was going to get better.
no. There was no, light at the end of the tunnel. I didn't know if this would ever get better. And I'd never heard of complex regional pain syndrome before, nor did I know it existed. So I had no idea, what was going on at all. I was completely in the dark. It was quite frightening.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's a very, very, very scary place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move on to a lighter topic. And let's say you were in this really dark space. What for you was the first thing that happened that you can think, if you think back to that space, what was the
Mm.
first thing that happened that kind of helped you to start going forward and go, okay, maybe this will get better. Maybe I can find a way, to use my leg again or for things to improve. What was the first thing that happened? And it can be anything, so it can be treatment, intervention, people you spoke to, uh, you know, what was that thing that helped you? Reading, whatever. What was the thing?
I think the first thing that gave me encouragement was seeing my pain specialist at the time. Um, no one else knew what was wrong. The nurses, the doctors, and am I allowed to name the pain specialist?
Yeah, sure, you can.
Okay. So I saw Dr. Penberthy, um, and she obviously I was in a bit of a panic because I didn't know what was going on, and experiencing the severe pain. And I remember her coming to see me, and she just calmed me and reassured me and gave me a diagnosis so that I knew, okay, this was a normal thing. It wasn't something just happening to me. It happens to other people. My leg isn't going to need to be cut off. And she just gave me that reassurance that it is treatable, that I can come out of it, that it will get better, and just to have hope. And I think that was probably the first thing that gave me a glimpse of hope that I will one day be free of the pain that I was in. And as for the walking, yeah, no one could tell me if I would walk again. And that became a scary reality for a couple of months of my life where I didn't know if I would be paralyzed in one leg or not. And so that scare was quite big because no specialist, no matter how specialized they were, could predict what would happen. um so that came a long time as things started to improve. That gave me hope, and I was
Yeah.
very, very dedicated to trying to regain the feeling in my leg and the response in my leg.
So what I'm hearing you say is actually that your pain specialist not only gave you hope and reassurance, but validated your experience, but also normalized it for you,
Yes, very
help
much.
you to understand that actually what I'm going through is normal.
Yeah,
It's going to be okay. There is treatment for this. I can
yeah,
find a way through. Not everyone has all the answers, but actually there is some help out there.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that was your first step towards recovery and
100.
getting better. And I
Yeah,
think that's quite important. I think that a lot of people don't get that. And that's
yeah.
how they kind of stay in that space of of just not knowing where to go or what to do.
I mean, coincidentally enough, I see a psychiatrist, and his
Mm,
daughter suffered from Crips, and they misdiagnosed her over a period of 2-3 years. Not knowing
yes.
that. So the
Yes.
fact that Dr. Penberthy there, who's able to say, "This is what you have, we can treat it,"
Yes.
was life changing. If I had to go through
Yes.
2 or 3 years, your
Yes.
would have managed.
Yes, no, I completely understand. I completely get that. So then we're going to move on to what would you say are your top three things that helped you to get better in your journey of recovery? Okay. And it can be, like I said, it can be anything. It doesn't have to be specific things that people talk about.
Yeah,
This is really about your journey. So if
yeah.
you had to say, what were the top three things that helped you to regain your function, to regain your life, to cope better with your pain, to recover from it, to get your life back? What were the
Mm.
three things that you would say?
I would say definitely support from my family. As I said, I went through a very dark time, a suicide,
Mm,
coming out with a paralyzed limb, complex regional pain syndrome. It was a turbulent few months, and my family were amazing. I moved in with my brother and sister-in-law and my two little nephews who are, the world to me. And they were there every day for me whenever I needed it. They supported me throughout everything. My dad was amazing as well. It I wouldn't be here without my family for sure. Um,
mm,
yeah, so they really had a huge role to play, and yeah, they got me through the really difficult parts.
yeah.
And I'll always be forever grateful for that. And yeah, I count myself lucky that I have my family who are there for me. I would also say my team of specialists. I saw a pain specialist, a neurologist, an occupational therapist, physiotherapists, and every one of them helped me an immense amount throughout my journey. Without them, again, I wouldn't be where I am. They were all reassuring, calming, positive, kept my spirits up, kept my hope there. And I had faith that because of them and because of the part of that they were a part of my journey to recovery, that this pain would come to an end. Uh,
Mm.
and then the third one, hmm, that's a tricky one. I definitely know the top two. Trying to think of a third good reason. Um, I would say prior to waking up from a coma and post coma, I was in two very different mindsets. I was in a very dark place prior to attempting to take my own life. And when I woke up, it was almost like my mind had reset and I had this clarity that I hadn't had in so long. And I was able to think positively, and I had this drive and ambition. And although I woke up with a paralyzed limb, and didn't know if I would walk again, I was determined to, do the exercises that my physios gave me, and walk a little bit further every day. And then I got diagnosed with complex regional pain syndrome, took a few steps back, but still I had that drive and motivation to get better. um to I then subsequently a few months later moved to Europe, but that came later. But I would never have dreamed of doing that pre, life take.
All of this. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I would say my mental strength during that time was probably the third reason, the third thing that got me through. Yeah,
Mm.
I wanted to get better, and I so took for granted everyday walking. It was my dream to walk again, and that's just something you don't even think of on an everyday basis. You're not
No.
grateful to walk; you
No.
take it for granted, and
Yeah.
I'd had it taken away from me, and I suddenly realized, and I was a huge runner. I love to run, and I thought I could never run again in my life. I don't know.
Mm.
Tell me. Um, so yeah, I started appreciating the small things in life. When this got taken away from me, this paralysis and the complex regional pain syndrome. And yeah, I would say my mental strength at the time was probably some of the best in my life. And that would probably be the third reason. Well, third criteria.
Yeah. Okay. So if I think back now to what you've just said, I think that you had sort of three teams. Okay. So you had your family, which was team one, that
Yeah.
supported you, and without their support and their love, to hold you up and help you through this difficult time, you couldn't have done it. Then you had your treating team who also supported you, but in a different way.
Yeah.
And guided you and helped you to find the right ways for you to get better, and what are the things you need to do, etc., and helped you in that way. And then you had team you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And team you had to come to the party as well. So team
Yeah.
you, along with the other two teams, all got together, and I would say without all three working together, it would have been difficult for you to move forward. Yeah. But because you had three teams and you were all kind of going in the same direction, working towards the same goal, supporting each other, the team supported each other in a way, it was easier for you to move forward.
Yes,
I
I
think
would
that's a
definitely.
fair and accurate way to put it.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. And then I just wanted to pick up on something that you said at the end, where you said that you started to appreciate the little things in life, the things that all of us take for granted, like walking, going for a walk in the park, being
Yeah.
able to run, being
Yeah.
able to exercise, being able, I remember at some stage you weren't able to drive. So things like
No.
being able to drive, being able to wear closed shoes.
Yep. I didn't wait for a couple of months.
Yes, so you didn't wear. I remember the first day you came in with shoes that looked more like shoes than flip-flops. And
Yeah.
I was like, wow, Lauren, look at you. Wow. And
I remember
because
that day
you
too.
didn't let anyone know that you were going to do it. You didn't give us any hint that this was going to happen. You just sort of arrived for your appointment, and there you were wearing these shoes. And I was like, wow, look at that. Lauren's got these shoes, And I'm like,
Action. Yeah.
okay. I mean, I was completely thrilled, surprised, but completely thrilled that
Yeah.
it almost felt to me, as a treating therapist and practitioner, it felt like you'd taken that step by yourself, which is an even bigger deal.
Yeah.
It's like you independently decided, this is it. I'm not going to wear flip-flops anymore. I'm going to put on a shoe and see how this goes, And I think that people who haven't been through this experience don't appreciate that it actually takes a lot of courage to do something like that.
It does. Yeah. You're
Because
very
for
right.
a long time, the reason that you wore the flip-flop was actually because your foot couldn't tolerate being in anything else. It was so painful, so sore, so sensitive that you couldn't actually put something else on. So for
Literally.
you to have the courage to put on a shoe that is now
Yeah.
going to be touching your foot all the
Yeah.
time, rubbing against it, you have to weight bear on it. It's like a whole different kind of sensation. And I don't think anyone thinks about that unless you've actually gone through that
Exactly.
experience, right?
You take for granted being able to wear shoes every day,
Exactly. And change your shoes and wear different
I-
types of shoes. Yeah.
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 Was it I definitely it opened my eyes, like you said, to all the small things that I took for granted, including shoe wearing, for sure.
Yeah. And it's a really big deal. Like I said, people who haven't been through it won't understand.
Yeah.
But it's a huge deal because once you almost get to that point where you make that decision and wear the shoe and it works
Mm-hmm.
and you're able to walk in it, it's almost like a whole new world opens up, right?
Yeah, it's like a breakthrough. Yeah.
It's a breakthrough. It's like we've broken through a barrier. It's like
Yeah.
we've taken away a fence. It's like, I'm going to achieve a whole lot more now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. I was, that for me was one of the moments for me that I treasured about your journey. It's, as a therapist, when I see that, I'm like, yes, we're winning, yes, we've done it. We've got there. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Okay, so now moving on to the last question. The last question I have for you is basically, if you now had to meet somebody anywhere. I mean, we could meet them in a doctor's office, on the street, at a coffee shop, wherever. But if you met somebody who was suffering with complex regional pain syndrome, going through what you were going through in the beginning, where there was no end in sight, you felt like you couldn't see the end, of the tunnel, you couldn't see the light, you weren't sure what was going to happen, you were uncertain, and there was no hope. What would be the thing that you tell them? What advice would you give them?
That's a difficult one, because when you're in a position like that, you don't see much hope. So it's difficult to listen to other people. But I would tell them, just have faith. Have faith that the pain will disappear. It might be a long journey. It might be a long road. It's not easy. There's lots of uncertainty. It's scary. But have faith that this too shall pass, yeah, that's the only thing you can do. And that's what I did. I gave it all to the professionals, and I just had faith that one day I would walk again, and one day I would have no pain in my leg. And yeah, I would say that is the one piece of advice I would give to a person who was really struggling and in a dark place from pain, because yeah, it obviously changes your whole life, and you never know if it will go back to normal again. But just believing that, and being positive, and believing that this will come to an end, I think that whole mindset is really, really important in a journey to recovery. So that's probably what I would say to somebody in a similar situation.
Yeah, so faith and hope, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, so having the hope that we will be able to get through this, that if I find the right help, the right teams, the right people, that actually I can get there. Yeah.
Yeah, possible, for sure. I mean, I'm a testimony, so.
Yes. So maybe we just want to tell everyone just how well you're doing. So do you want to tell everyone just how well you're doing in terms of, so just for context for everyone, when Lauren came to me, she actually was on crutches.
Yes.
She was on crutches. She couldn't walk properly. She wasn't wearing normal shoes. She, like you heard her say, had her foot constantly in an ice cold bath, basically, to be able to tolerate. She wasn't sleeping at night. She wasn't doing anything during the day. She was completely, on some level, disabled by her pain. And she was really, really young. But since then, she's traveled the world. But I'd let her tell you a bit more of how far you've come. So where are you now? How's things going? How's your leg? How's your exercise program? What's your life? Just give them an idea of how far you've come.
Yeah. So I made the decision. From a young kid, I've always dreamed of living and traveling Europe. And I've never really had the means to do so. And I'm a qualified chartered accountant, which luckily can get you a job almost anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And so I decided to go to Europe. So I've been in Europe for the past 2 years. I have traveled probably to 6 or so countries within Europe in the 2 years that I was there. Spent all my money basically on traveling. Saw Europe, made the most amazing friends that I will have, lifelong friends. I have since returned to South Africa, and I'm going in a complete opposite direction into nature guiding. And I start the course shortly. I have an exam coming up. And yeah, my leg hasn't recovered 100%. I still have some numbness. I think that's the only side effect that I still have. And that's, if I put it in a bath, I can't feel the temperature. But that's just due to the nerve damage that I had that had impacted it and caused it to be paralyzed in the first place. But in terms of, and it's still my foot, especially the underside, is still a little bit sensitive. Like if I tickle it, it's almost verging a little bit on sore. And there's still a little bit of hypersensitivity there, but other than that, I can run, I can walk, there are no crutches in sight. Yeah, I'm pretty much 97% recovered. And yeah, I lead a normal life. I've gone back to my running, albeit not as far as I used to, or fast probably. Yeah, I've gone back to my running. I do boxing. Yeah, you could almost say like it's like chalk and cheese, black and white, you know, like you can't. And from where I was to where I am now is a complete breakthrough. So yeah, things have certainly changed for the good. So yeah, I'm very grateful
Yes.
to everyone along the journey who helped me and who got me here. And yeah, it seems like the other day that it happened, but yeah, it's been pretty much 2 years and a few months. So yeah, it's
So well done on your journey, and
thank you.
well done on you on hanging in there. You know, I think you have an amazing story, and I'm sure it's going to help other people with complex regional pain syndrome.
I sincerely
So thank you so much for sharing your story with us today, Lauren.
well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes, and take care and all the luck with your new adventure.
Thank you so much, Darshini.
Okay, take care.